Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action, primarily Diablo 2 Resurrected, D2R and PD2 Project Diablo 2, of course. Ladder 1 D2R is upon us in literally just a couple of days, and I will be going hard on a hardcore sorceress trying to get to 99 so you can catch all of the action here. And today's video is coming just in time for that first ladder. And the subject of this video is today I am going to teach you guys how to be a pro trader on Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'll be giving you guys 5 overall tips for how to become a pro trader as much as possible. I will try to be thorough, but I'll try to be quick as I discuss these things. However, before we get into the meat of the video, I do have some things I have to get out of the way. This video is not a paid promotion of any kind. I am not affiliated with any of these trade sites that we'll be going over today, and there are no endorsements here from myself for any of these trade sites or any of these other sites, particularly that I'll be going over today. These are sites that I think most of the community finds useful, and these are sites that I personally find useful, but there are no explicit endorsements in this particular video whatsoever. So let's get that out of the way there. We'll be primarily showing you guys how to trade effectively using the sites D2GSP and Traderie. So we'll be doing I'll be showing off some things there so that you guys can understand how to effectively trade on those sites. But yeah, this is not an endorsement. This is to help players navigate the complex world of D2R trading, which is very difficult because there's no officially endorsed Blizzard trade site. So you have to use, if you want to trade effectively and you don't want to be barter trading one item at a time in a trade game, or even in a trade channel, that you have to use to trade effectively. So that is why we're making this video today. I do realize that I may get some hate for this, but as a content creator, I seek to help out all players that want to play D2R regardless of how they choose to play or how other people choose to play on the sites or how they feel about other people that choose to play the game differently from them. I myself do mostly like really enjoying solo self-found and hardcore these days, so I don't do as much trading as much, but I used to do a ton of trading. So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge that can really help you guys out in this regard. But yeah, I personally believe everyone should play how they want to, what makes sense for them based on how much time they have, like what they enjoy. Just there's so many different ways to play this game in the end game, and trading is a very big part of Diablo 2 Resurrected. So before we get into a little bit more of the meat, let's explain why the hell should you listen to me? Why should you listen to Dark Humility about how to trade? Does he know what he's talking about? Well, I mean, I know there's people more experienced than I am. Don't get me wrong. There are lots of people that are far more experienced than I am. But I do have almost 70,000 trade posts on the website D2GSP. I used to trade all the time 10 years ago, and I still use it sometimes to help out my community on my stream and whatnot. So it's yeah, I got a lot of experience. Let's just suffice it there. This is what I'm known as on D2GSP. Some people might remember me from back in the day, maybe not. But yeah, on Twitch, Dark Humility, here, Russia Bank, same thing. All right, so now we get that out of the way. Why the hell should you be using trade sites? Why would you want to use trade sites? Because barter trading is ineffective. If you've ever entered the lobby, you'll notice that you have to like trade one item at a time and hope that whoever enters has like runes as currency or has the exact items you're looking for. And that's how it used to be back in the day before these trade sites existed as well. I used to do this back in the day, and I'll tell you, man, it's rough stuff. It is rough stuff. So, all right. So that being said, I've done thousands of trades in game, but I've also done like tens of thousands of trades using JSP, and I've also learned how to use Traderie as well, so I can show you guys some tips for things that you should be doing if you want to trade as effectively as possible. So the principles I'll be explaining today apply to all sites, not just the ones I'll be demoing, but I'm going to demo the ones that are the most popular for D2 Resurrected so that you guys, or at least the most well-known, so you guys will feel more confident in what you are doing here today. All right, so tip number one. Tip number one, guys. Tip number one. Learn what is valuable, how it is valuable, and the relevant stats. So I have a couple of like sub points on this one. So it's very important, especially as a newer player, if you're not super familiar with the game, to understand like when you pick up an item or you make an item or you find an item, is the item valuable? The first thing I'd recommend that you do, this is on maxroll.gg here, which is, in my opinion, the very best website for Diablo 2 information, period. It's a site that I helped build along with the rest of the D2R team. But yeah, you guys can check this out here. And what I recommend doing here is to check what items builds use. One really effective way to do this is to scan pretty much all of the build guides and then to go into the gear options and then just check what kind of items these builds use. And these are the items that are going to have some kind of trade value because they are useful for the build and will further the build in general. So yeah, if you go to the build guides, I mean, you can just scan whatever build you want. That was the Poison Nova Necromancer there. And you can just check out all kinds of different builds and see what they're using. I mean, obviously you can check the planners here to see what they're using as well in the front, but I would say it's very effective to go check out all the items that these types of builds use just to see what could have value. If you're not familiar with items that could have value in general. And especially like early ladder, definitely check out all of the sorceress and paladin builds and the leveling guide builds as well, so you have more familiarity with what kinds of items might be valuable. Another thing you can do is use valuable item lists. Of course, even this list here on Maxwell is likely to be updated in the coming days and might even be updated in weeks after the ladder as we learn more about trade value and how things are adjusting to patch 2.4. However, these are very useful lists just in general if you're a new player. You can understand which items have a lot of values, so when you'll know when you hit it big when you find one of these items, or you find etc. I mean, like on those build guides, you know, if you find a rune that's in one of those big rune words, you'll know you've made it big. And it's really important to do this so that you have a general understanding of what you should be trading and if you add to a trade list or if you try to trade on any of these trade sites, what is just going to be trash or a waste of time. But in general, you know, this site, I really like this list here. It ranks it from like high to trash. Like I said, though, the exact items in each category might be adjusted here in the coming days, but I highly recommend checking out to see kind of like in general, like, you know, is it tradable? Is it decent? Or is it just total trash? Maybe has no trade value, but you can use it for like certain builds, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, you'll at least have a pretty decent understanding here of how to do that from this. The other thing, of course, you can do is to scan the forums for just scan them in general for like what people are selling. And this takes a lot longer. I mean, you can obviously make your own internal list and just learn, okay, people are selling Grand Charms of Life. You know, that's going to be a pretty good item, right? Grand Charms with skills and life. That's going to be a really good item. You know, people are selling a string of ears, which what looks like are perfect stats. I know that because I know the stats on the items. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely check these things as well. And you can check that as well on Traderie as well. You can check like recent trades and you can see what people are selling just in general just by clicking on any of these buttons and just see like what kinds of items people even sell on Traderie and whatnot. I go to like uniques here, you can just see, okay, these are items that people might try to trade for some kind of value. Traderie, unfortunately, though, includes a lot of items that almost have no trade values, so it can be a little bit more confusing than D2GSP in that regard. But at least you get the idea of things that could be useful as well, especially if you check recent trades for each item. So if you go to like uniques here, and then you go to Dariel's Visage, let's see here. You can see there's a lot of people trading this item, and the fact that there's a lot of people trading this item suggests that it's a good item, right? If there's not a lot of people trading it, or otherwise, maybe it's not a good item. So that's another really quick way to kind of figure that out there. All right, the next really big one, and the one that I think is probably the most important for increasing your trade knowledge and increasing your ability to effectively trade on Diablo 2 Resurrected, is to always price your items if you can. If you can. There are some exceptions, like some really godly rare craft items that you should maybe put up for bid. You can make images of those godly rare and crafted items. I mean, you can do that. You can screenshot it in the game, put it on Imgur, and then you can create a, you can just like put that link there, that embed link for the forum, surround it with the image brackets, and bam, you can get an image for it, and you can post it on any kind of a post, and then people can just bid on it. There's a lot of value, there's a lot of items like rares and crafts that don't have very set values, and they're values that are very much open to interpretation by the buyer, simply because they're not generic. They're just not generic items. So yeah, those items might be really tough to price. But for everything else, price your items. This is key. So right here, let's see here. This is just an example of me, like if I post one singular item here, a perfect Griffins, I price it. I always price my items if I can. And pricing your items is very big and very important, because people are more likely to pass up on an item that you try to trade if you don't price it, because it takes time to haggle. They know it's going to take time to haggle. They might not be confident in the price of the items. So if you're not confident in it either, then that just prevents trading. That just puts up more roadblocks to you selling as many items as possible. You don't want to put up those roadblocks. You want to make it simple. Now you might think dark humility, but dark humility, if I price my item and I'm wrong, then nobody will buy it. And that's right. That's why it's important to try to learn about what the general price might be. And if you're in the ballpark and you price it, you're so much more likely to sell it. People are so worried about underselling their item or overselling their item. But if you price your item, you are, I don't know exactly how many more times likely to sell it, but I can tell you. I make whole lists. I price my items. Those lists tend to go because I price my items, and they know that there's zero hassle if they just bin it at that price. It's so important. So many people just post random ass lists of items and they don't price them because they're not confident in them, or they're afraid of getting ripped off. Even if you get ripped off a few times, a little bit here and there, you're still selling the items, and you're still selling them for some kind of currency or otherwise. Obviously, like the big like thing that people like to use D2GSP for is because they can sell for forum gold. The reason why people don't like to use it is because it can be bought with real currency. But you can exchange it for, items in other games and things like that. And just pricing your items just really allows you to gain an edge there. Like on Traderie, if you price it in runes, it's really important to price it in runes. And you can, even on Traderie, you can actually set multiple prices. So you can set multiple prices, which is kind of cool. You can actually use this OR button here. So even if you set your price in runes, which is The advantage of Traderie is you don't have to deal with like a forum currency or anything, and if that's what you don't like to use, you just want to trade in current runes, which are the most generally accepted currency on Diablo 2. You can, but you can price it in a rune, whatever it is. In this case, a set of 9 keys, 3x3, 3 destruction keys, 3 terror keys, and 3 hate keys. But you can press this OR button here, and then you can add a whole nother rune here. And see there, before you add the listing, you can actually set multiple prices that are acceptable, which is really cool in Traderie. So you can actually do that, which is really neat. And on JSP, you could do the same thing. You could set a range, you could set a res, you could set a bin. So a reserve, they reserve it. It's not guaranteed, maybe like an hour. You DM them if nobody's offered higher. And then bin for buy it now would be used here as well. But yeah, I would say those are the main advantages in Traderie. You can use runes as currency. You don't have to deal with the fact that currency can be traded for real money. And on JSP, it can be used to trade for even real life items if you have access to the donor forum. And it can be used across trading platforms for multiple games. So this stuff, very important note just to understand like how important, it's so important to price your items. Very, very, very important. So make sure to price it in either runes or forum gold. And what I mentioned before, you guys might be asking, but what if I don't know the price? What if I don't even know the ballpark of what I should price it? I don't want to get ripped off big time. And that is a very good question. So you're going to want to make sure to check the price checks. You can even add a price check. So you can add new trades, services. You can fully customize your trades. Just make sure you're in the right trading forum. Make sure you're in the right section here. There's a lot of trading forums on JSP, so just make sure we're in Resurrected. If you're trading on PC on softcore, you're in the right place right now, and you're good to go. When Ladder launches, there's going to be new forums for that as well. But yeah, you're gonna want to add a price check. You can filter by price checks as well. And then you can even filter using the search bar here on JSP as well. On Traderie, you can do exactly what I said before. You can browse different listings here. So you can like click on Endarl's Visage, and then you can see what other people have been selling the Endarl's Visage for in terms of runes. And you can get an idea from that as well. But notice how many people are saying like make an offer. Those people are far less likely to sell their items. This is very important stuff. So if you can see like a general understanding of like what runes might work, you can literally just copy them. And if you see a couple of different listings, you can kind of average out the price and make your own listing if you want as well. That's what I like to do. I find that very effective. But let's say you don't know, I don't know, the value of your materials might, Oh, interesting. Oh, no results on that. Oh, that's because we're in price check. Yeah, make sure you're in all there. Oops. Okay, I was not in the right section. All right. So yeah, for trade, materials might, he's got to buy it now. Check for posts that are selling it for things, and I wouldn't just take one person's word for it, kind of just see what other people are selling it for on the market. Prices change fast on the ladder, so you might want to check every few days. If you're still selling the item, you might want to update your knowledge and make sure you're looking at the most recent posts if you're on JSP in this case. So yeah, very, very, very important stuff to check other people's prices, scan for listings. You can even just scan here if you want a general understanding of like how much runes are worth and whatnot. See what the rune words are selling with the rune in it, or with the runes in it. See what individual runes are selling for, and then kind of add them together to make up the price of a rune word. There's a lot of very, very important tactics, but honestly, the trade websites themselves are the best resources for understanding what the prices will be. So that's tip number 2. Always price your items. Always do it. All right, tip number 3. Let's get into always organize everything. Organization is key. becoming a pro trader and leveling up your trading ability and the ability to unload as many items as possible. So, I think the most important thing here is to understand different ways you can organize your posts. And of course, when you make your post, you want to specify whether you're selling or buying it, your topic, and everything else if you're on GSP. On Traderie, before you list it, you're going to want to make sure you have all of the specifications for everything on here as well. You know exactly what you're selling, how much, and exactly what the platform is, whether it's ladder or not, whether you're on PC and whatnot. Just make sure you specify everything before you add the listing here at the bottom. So just make sure you got all those out of the way first. But then the most important thing is that if you have multiple items, this is really key. Most people want to trade multiple items because they find multiple items, but they don't know how to do it. I've seen people just put a vomit of items on the list. Like it'll be like item 1, Turrune, item 2, Enigma, item 3, Burrune, item 4, Storm Shield. And if someone's searching for that using the search function, they might be able to pick them out, especially if you make sure to price your items, and they might be able to DM you just fine. So if you go back here and use the search function and you filter by whatever, people will use the search function, and they might find your post pretty easily no matter how you organize it. But if they're just clicking on your post here and they see that post is bolded in red, posts are always updating, of course, in the top 50 or the top 25 and whatnot. And then they see this post. It can be hard sometimes to see exactly like what they're selling, just in general. Like there's just a lot of stuff. Like you can see, like this is not a bad example too much because he at least organizes it into gear, into inventory. There's a lot of examples of people just vomiting items. Make sure you have some kind of headers. See how this person did it here? Trying to specify rare gloves, different types of small charms, different types of charms. That's really good. Organization is very key to people being able to find your items. I like to make posts like this where I organize them into like body armors, helmets, weapons, jewelry, things of that nature. I feel like that's the easiest way for people to find things in a lot of cases. It's definitely very important stuff. But what you can also do is you can even make specific posts where you can make different posts where one post you're selling charms and you organize them into different types of charms like so. And you can have them bolded, underlined. Make sure to separate the headers. Make sure to use bold and underline. Maybe you could use different colors. Make sure you just have everything and you can put the images at the bottom, whatever. And then make sure once again to price all your items. So you can have Russia's Charm City, whatever, Russia's socketed item list. Those things tend to be very effective ways to sell items. Sometimes people are looking for a socket base, so they're also looking for a post when they scan the posts here that have socketed items. And there are a lot of people that just scan using this. They don't use the filter, especially because the filter, maybe they were offline an hour ago, maybe a day ago, and the filter will still pick it up. Whereas if it was just posted, they're online. So it's more reliable that you can contact them and meet with them in-game for a trade. Very good, very, very important stuff. And of course, when you actually are able to DM someone and trade them, no matter on what site you're using, make sure that everything is specified, like what game name and password that you're using and everything else of that nature. And make sure you also set your alerts on to make sure that someone is you're able to hear if someone is DMing you, or if you get DMs or you get posts on your trade post, if someone is responding to it in the trade post itself, which they should be doing in addition to DMing you. Make sure you set up your alerts up in your settings as well. That is part of organization, making sure that you can listen to the trades when they happen, when you're still playing the game maybe, or otherwise, and then making sure you organize your posts into types of posts, like a charm post, or at the very least into subheaders for types of items if you have a big post, which is tons of items. Is definitely the best way to do it. Not to do this. Don't start laundry listing your items as you find them in the mule or whatnot. it's not good. Now, on another subject of organization, it's very important here that you organize your items into mule types or create some kind of Excel spreadsheet to where you can find the items. I recommend, because it takes a lot less time, just to put your items in your shared stash, and then at the end of your farming session or whatever, organize them into different mules. You could have 20 different mules. You could even buy another account from Blizzard and then put all your mules there. Um, could drop the items on the ground and then pick them up with the other account that you can access on your other computer or on the same computer if you have two instances that you're sandboxing, whatever. Make sure that you're organizing your items into different types of items. Like here, it'd be like sets, runes, bases, unique weapons, unique armors, miscellaneous, whatever. You can have 50 mules with like different types. You could have 2 mules for unique armors, 3, 4, 5, depending on how much you find. Just make sure that it's easy for you to find your items, so when you make a trade, people will want to trade with you again, so that you just land the trade. You go in there with the character, you know in general which maybe 1 or 2 characters, maybe 3 characters have the item, and then you can make the trade quickly and you know where it's located. Make sure you know your items are located in the game, and make sure people can find your items on the trade site. On Traderie, it's not quite as important because of the way they list items to organize them in a post like this. Of course, you can kind of find your own listings, though, and organize them in a certain way as well. But yeah, you're going to want to make sure you do that 110%. All right, so that's tip number 3. Very, very good stuff. Make sure you're specific. Make sure you're specific when you post items as well. Make sure if they have stats like 22 res, 13 DR. A lot of people will know what this means, but if you don't, I mean, or you're afraid other people don't know, you can further specify it as well. And just to make sure people know, like if you're selling a Crown of Ages, it's good as well. A lot of people know the abbreviations for items, but yeah, always be as specific as possible. The same goes for on Traderie as well. Always try to specify your items as much as possible. Try to make sure that people understand what they're buying. That makes it even more likely that they are to want to trade with you and buy your items. All right, so that's tip number 3. I'd say tip number 2 and tip number 3 are the most important. Tip number 1 is also insanely important because you need to understand like what the value of items are just in general, and it's very important that you understand like how to get that kind of information. When we went over that in the beginning, like I said, always check these valuable item lists. Try to figure out what people are going to want for builds. Learn what kind of builds need what kind of items, and then in that will help you massively when it comes to understanding what you should be trading. And of course, scanning the lists themselves on the trade sites. So scan the lists. See what items people are trading on Traderie and how many trades there are for each item, and you'll get a good idea of what you should be trading for in general. Use your resources, all of them. All right, tip number 4: look for bulk deals, quitting lists, auctions for good deals, offers to buy whole lists, half off. You can offer them via DM. There's always people selling massive bunches of lists. This is definitely easier to access on GSP and easier to see on GSP. But in general, if you have a lot of time on your hands and you want to acquire a lot of items in-game, you can offer just to sell them, just to buy. Just look for people selling their items really cheap in bulk and then sell them piecemeal, and use the organization systems I showed you here to sell them piecemeal one by one. And you can usually double or triple the value of the original price that you paid for it. Maybe even more so. In some cases, I've like quintupled, even upwards of 10 times the value of some of those lists. If you are someone that doesn't have a lot of time, maybe you're the one making those lists. That is a good way to just unload a lot of items, is to make those quitting lists as well. So you can make those bulk deals as well. Bulk deals are nice. People might go for them. People might want to sell them piecemeal for profit. It's a good way to unload tons of items if you don't have time. But if you do have a lot of time, you should be looking for those lists if you want to upgrade your trading experience and to make as much forum currency or accrue as many high runes as possible, no matter what you're looking for. All right, and then the last big tip, the last one that's really, really important, is in general the general market concept. See, this doesn't just apply to D2R or any game in particular, it also applies to the world at large. You always want to buy low and sell high if you can. Once again, this is a time-based thing, kind of like tip number 4. So if you have a lot of time, you're going to want to buy low and sell high. If you have time to haggle, especially, and if you have a lot of extra time that you feel like you can just play the game. If you have less time to play the game, though, you're going to want, and if you value your time more in general, you might want to buy high and sell low. So once again, it kind of depends on what kind of player you are and your situation. But in general, if you have a lot of time to play the game like me, and you're really big into trading, buy low, sell high. Always look at the lowest price someone is willing to sell something for. Use the search function, scan it, and then you can always resell it if you want, or at the very least you can use it and then know that maybe you can sell it in a few days or something, and you won't lose quite as much value off of it because you bought it for cheap to begin with. So that's always a good principle. People do that all the time, though. Some people give a lot of people crap for that, but in general, prices will drop as the ladder season progresses. So it is totally normal to do that. And it's totally normal to look for deals. But once again, if you just want the item ASAP, maybe you just find the first post and pay for it. Either way, it kind of depends on your time situation. Absolutely. And on that final point of buy low, sell high, let's talk about some early ladder economics here. So early ladder economics are going to look like this. Everyone's going to want certain kinds of items that are needed mostly for the 2 most popular classes and for farming bosses in particular, like Hel Mephisto and Hel Andariel, or at least for the most popular classes and the strongest starting classes. So a lot of items like Shaco obviously is going to be worth a ton. Herald of Zakram is likely to be worth just an ass load because of Fist of the Heavens Paladins being so prominent in this new patch. Hammertons are still very strong, of course. Then obviously you got like Oculus, Tal set items. Those are always going to be worth a ton in the very beginning of ladder, just period. So that is absolutely going to be the case. Any sorceress items, paladin items, even to some degree, maybe Lighten, Fury, Amazon items like Titan's Revenge, those are going to be worth quite a bit. Magic Find items in general, generic Magic Find is also going to be worth quite a bit, especially in the very beginning. What you can do, though, let's say you have a lot of time to play. If you have a lot of time to play, I would just make one of those popular classes and accept that if you want to improve your own gear and you want to trade for gear that you need, you are going to have to pay a premium for it. You're going to have to trade quite a bit, or you're going to have to find it yourself. And that if you find those own items that need to improve those characters, that you need to improve your character, such as like a Shaco on the Sorceress, you have a tough decision to make because you can either trade it for a lot, maybe wait some days and then rebuy it back, or you can use it to farm while items have the most amount of value. So that's a tough decision to make for sure, and that's definitely something every one of you guys is going to have to make. Whether or not you, your first jaw rune, do you start to work towards an Enigma, or do you trade for a Brew rune as fast as possible to get that Enigma and to increase your farming efficiency as much as possible? Or do you trade it, maybe wait a week, and then rebuy it back like 5 times less the price and buy your whole character? You can do that very easily. Using the value of runes, and Forum Gold, I'd say, on JSP makes it even easier. However, one really big part of this tip of buy low, sell high is if you don't have a lot of time to play, and maybe there's going to be gaps in your playing and your ability to play. Maybe the gaps are the weekdays. Maybe you can only play on the weekends. Your best bet might actually be to play a not as popular class and sticking with something like a Druid where his Hellfire torches, his everything, just everything in general. Like every piece of the druid's gear is going to be so much cheaper and easier to acquire than a standard paladin or sorceress because he's not one of the most efficient classes for starting out. Your gear is going to be really easy to trade for, and if you ever find an Oculus or something you literally can't use on a druid, you are set. You could pretty much purchase the whole character via runes or forum gold, whatever you want. Just virtue of getting lucky once. You farm the Stony Tomb, you find you find an Oculus, you find a Shoota's Temper, you find a Storm Shield, and you're on hardcore and you don't need it. Yeah, it's just really crazy stuff. You can definitely make use of that stuff, and then of course you can use the cheapest gear you possibly can on the druid, and you can just find really good stuff for those two most popular classes, and then you can dump those out and then make the strongest druid possible pretty soon. So yeah, that's definitely a good strategy. A lot of people, they don't like playing some of those other less effective classes because they feel like they're just less efficient, which is true if you have a lot of time. But if you don't have a lot of time and you just get lucky and find one of those crazy sorceress or paladin items, especially like really early on, yeah, your whole character's made. You just you can trade them for a really big rune or forum gold, a lot of forum gold, and get rich quick. That's basically it. Talked about a lot of things. Those are the 5 major points. I hope you guys learned a lot from this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you thought you learned a lot about trading just in general. You learned that even if you want to buy an item, make sure you also specify your price as well, not just when you're trading for items. So you can, if you know the price of what you want to buy, you can also specify the price if you're buying an item, not just selling. Keep that in mind. Prices sell and buy items very quickly. They just reduce the amount of pain and time, and they make it more likely. People are going to want to do that because they know how painful it is to haggle and how much time that can cost. And it takes time away from playing the game, takes time away from doing other things. It's never a good idea. So remember the 5 tips. Learn what is valuable. Learn what is valuable, how it is valuable, the stats on the item that make it valuable, if you can. Always price your items. Tip number 2. Organize your posts, organize your mules, organize everything. Make sure you're ready to trade. Number 3. Number 4, look for bulk deals. Make bulk deals yourself if you don't have the time to trade. Number 4. Number 5, buy low, sell high, or buy high, sell low, depending on whether you value your time more or your items in the game. And of course, you can use the market dynamics of the early ladder to your advantage, especially if you don't have as much time to really grind out with that ultra efficient build like a sorceress or a paladin or something. Maybe play a less popular class like a druid, maybe an assassin. Get your items cheap and farm those really big items and start making as much forum gold or runes as you possibly can. And anyway, that's pretty much it. Remember, you can always check out the rest of my guides on my YouTube here. You can check out all my other build guides and on YouTube and on Maxroll as well. Maxroll is definitely the best site for Diablo 2 information. Hope you guys are all ready to crush the ladder with me, and you can always catch me at twitch.tv/darkhumility for 6 to 7 days a week of action. And with that, guys, let's get it. Become a pro trader. Let me know if this video helped you out and gave you some really good pointers for how to learn and navigate the complex system of Diablo 2 trading. And yeah, Dark Humility over and out. See you guys next time.